Great, all right. Who are we when no one is looking? Some say that's our truest self, the unfiltered, unmasked, uncurated self. But the idea that we are our truest selves when no one is looking assumes that we are able and willing to strip ourselves of the trappings of our hard-won identities, to look at ourselves in the mirror and confront the truth of who we are. Life, however, is conveniently very busy. Time is short, and there is often no space to simply stare at oneself in the mirror and ask, who is this person staring back at me? It's easier to put that existential identity crisis on the back burner and focus on productivity instead. So we shop, we cook, we make plans, we lose ourselves on social media and the news cycle, all while avoiding this essential question: who are we when no one is looking? It's understandable that we avoid this question because honestly, we may not be ready for the answers. In 2020, during the height of the pandemic and my first year of rabbinical school, I had a lot of time to myself. During that time, many of us were isolated, spending more time alone than really ever before. And the person we each saw most was ourselves. And this was certainly my experience. I would often see myself on the Zoom screen or stare at myself in the corner of a FaceTime call or just myself staring back from the mirror. And as my hair grew longer and my patience shorter in that maddening experience, my mirror became a place to disrupt this monotony with a bit of an opportunity for deep thought. I decided to condition myself to ask some tough questions. How did I do this? Did I just stare at myself in the mirror? No, that's truly the last thing I wanted to do. Instead, I got in the habit of taping quotes and questions that I found moving or challenging to my mirror. And every time I stood in front of that mirror, I read them and I explored them. One quote I taped to my mirror came from the show Grey's Anatomy, which has been a constant companion and is a truly bingeable show, and has been with me through my life's ups and downs from undergrad until now. The show is a medical drama which asks probing questions, presents ethical dilemmas, and creates space to cry it out or dance it out after a hard week. On Friday mornings during my undergrad, I had the ritual of heading to the UC Berkeley Music Library, watching the newest episode, and having a good cry, as any good college student does. One short monologue from the main character of the show, Meredith Grey, captured my attention, and it's really stayed with me ever since. And it goes like this. So do it. Decide. Is this the life you want to live? Is this the person you want to love? Is this the best you can be? Can you be stronger, kinder, more compassionate? Decide. Breathe in, breathe out, decide. Some of life's toughest questions packed into just a few lines here. They're like handling raw plutonium or something. Their potential to create or destroy is immense, and they seem simple because they're so simply stated, but they demand us to explore the parts of ourselves that we'd really prefer to avoid. But Meredith Grey's call is clear. Do it. Decide. These questions, tied to the broader question of who are we when no one is looking, force us to stand at the precipice of who we are and who we want to be. They demand a decision. Can we be better? Can we be kinder? Is this the life we want to live? Yes or no? It may not seem that simple, but sometimes it is that simple. And even when we try to ignore these questions, they eventually demand a response from us. Jacob, stands at such a precipice in this week's Parashah Vaishlach. He is on his way to confront his estranged brother, Esav, and fearing their meeting, Yaakov tries to appease Esav with gifts and deferential messages. And on the eve of their meeting, of their encounter, Yaakov finds himself alone at the river, where he's confronted by a mysterious figure, an Ish, which just translates as man in Hebrew. And he wrestles with him until dawn. Yaakov then demands to know the man's name, but instead, the mysterious figure refuses to answer and blesses him and renames him Israel, the one who struggles with God and then departs. Many interpret this Ish as a divine figure. Others suggest that it was maybe Esav. But the interpretation that resonates most with me is that Yaakov was wrestling with himself. Alone at the river, on the brink of facing his past and his brother, he confronts the content of his own identity. Yaakov's name literally means heel grabber, or it can mean supplanter, reflecting how he came into the world grasping Esav's heel and later on stole Esav's birthright. This name tells a story of deception and struggle, a story that caused him a lot of pain and his family a lot of pain and was in need of resolution. And in wrestling with himself, Yaakov earned this new name, Yisrael, one who struggles with God. His new name tells a different story, one of transformation and a willingness to face the struggle head on. So, what's in a name after all, dear Juliet? Well, a name is a story. Just as Montague and Capulet signify the story of a bitter feud, so too does Yaakov in Israel signify a story of transformation. For Yaakov, there was no way around it anymore. He had to struggle with himself in order to begin a new chapter of his story. And that is what the question of who are we when no one is looking invites us and indeed demands us to do. It's an opportunity to name what is happening in our lives and to ask, who am I? Who am I really? The Ukrainian poet Zelda captures this idea in her beautiful poem, Each of Us Has a Name, which has been a topic of discussion lately with my rabbinical cohort. And the poem describes all of the names given to us by others and by life, based on their stories and perceptions of us. And it goes like this. Each of us has a name given by God and given by our parents. Each of us has a name given by our stature and our smile and given by what we wear. Each of us has a name given by the mountains and given by our walls. Each of us has a name given by the stars and given by our neighbors. Each of us has a name given by our sins and given by our longing. Each of us has a name given by our enemies and given by our love. Each of us has a name given by our celebrations and given by our work. Each of us has a name given by the seasons and given by our blindness. Each of us has a name given by the sea and given by our death. Notice it doesn't mention the name that we give ourselves. The absence of that fact invites us to write the absent stanza and ask, what is the name that we give ourselves? When we stand at the river wrestling with ourselves in the dark, what names, or in other words, what stories given or imposed upon us help or hinder us? And what new story will we choose to craft or choose or accept to aid in our transformation? As we approach this new Gregorian year with all its calls for resolutions, as you stand at your river or in front of your mirror, at the precipice of your life, whatever that may be, big or small, I want to invite you to reflect on these questions. Who are you when no one is looking? How will you turn the page in your story? Is this the life you want to live? Is this the best you can be? Can you be stronger, kinder, more compassionate? So do it. Decide. Breathe in, breathe out, and decide. Shabbat shalom.